If you're a leader that wants to produce a winning culture within your team or within your organization, over the next few minutes, I'm going to walk you through the same process, step by step, that we have used for hundreds of organizations to be able to allow them to create the culture that they want. If you want your team to be able to perform at a higher level, to have a better environment, to produce better results, this training is for you. Tune in. What would be possible for your life and your business if you became the best version of you? What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. And in today's episode, we're going to talk about how to create a winning culture within your team or your organization so that they can perform to their best. And if you don't know anything about me, I've had the amazing privilege to coach hundreds of companies and thousands of business owners individually to help them not only feel and perform better individually, but help their organizations create the culture, create the systems, the process, the execution that they want and they need to get to the level that they want to. And after coaching thousands of individuals and hundreds of companies, I've learned a lot about what works and what does not work in the business space, as well as the amazing organizations that I get to lead. And I want to give you a very simple process that will allow you to create the culture that you want within your team or within your organization. This has worked for me, not only in the clients that I've been able to serve, but also in different environments. This has worked in sports teams that I had the privilege to lead and be a captain of. I played Division I football. This worked in ministry organizations, in the teams that I led of volunteers and of staff when I was on staff at church organizations. This has worked for the different companies that I now get to lead personally. There's business consulting organization, there's events company that I've been able to run, there's brick and mortar companies, there's health organization, and then all the hundreds of companies that I've been able to consult with as well. The same process works over and over and over, and it's worked very well for our clients, and I hope it works very well for you. But let's talk about it. There's two things that determine culture. Culture is values plus behavior. Culture is values plus behavior. These two things determine the culture that you create. It's who are we and how do we behave in alignment with that who? Who are we and what do we do and how does that do align with the who? If you can determine your culture, it will take you picking your values and driving those behaviors. And let's break that down a little bit. First off, I want to talk about how do I actually create the values for my company? How do I pick my, what you could call core values? Who are we as an organization? I'm going to give you a quick exercise to make sure that the values that you have within your organization actually are who you are, not who you want to be, not who you aspire to be, not who you accidentally are, but who you are at your best. And then second, we're going to talk about how to drive those specific behaviors. And if you determine who you are and you drive behaviors around that who or those values, you'll create the culture you want. So let's start with values. Number one, how do I create the values or the core values that I should be embodying as an organization or as a team? I believe that your values are not who you want to be, but who you are already at your best. When you're creating the identity or the values of who you are as a team or organization, it should not be something you aspire to be. It should not be something that you already aren't, but that you're trying to become. That's actually fake. That's you trying to fake it till you make it become something that you're not. I believe that organizations and teams are their best not when they try to become something different, but when they actually come home to who they truly are. When they step into fully embodying who they already are, that's when they become their best because they're not trying to be anyone else that they already aren't. They're stepping into what they already naturally are. It's like the concept of a company strength finders. They have you take this test and they determine what strengths do I have and what weaknesses do I have. And the encouragement they give is don't go fix your weaknesses, lean into your strengths. I believe it's the same principle when you're determining your values and who you are as an organization. It shouldn't be determine who we're not and try to be better at those. It should be who are we already and how do we step into that even more fully. So this exercise that I'm going to give you will give you the tools that you need to determine who you are really at your best as an organization. So let's pick our core values. The exercise looks like this. I want you to write down 2 to 3 names of individuals within your team or within your organization that you think are amazing. That if you had a bunch of those, your team would be incredible to be around. You would execute at a high level. You would get amazing work done. Like if you had a couple of these people or a bunch of these 2 to 3 individuals, you would have the best organization ever. So I want you to write those 2 or 3 names down. And for each name, I want you to write a list of characteristics about each of them. Maybe they're hardworking. Maybe they're trustworthy. Maybe they're full of integrity. Maybe they're full of passion. I want you to list out individual attributes or characteristics about those individuals. So you should have 2 to 3 names and then a list of characteristics or traits. Now, for you to find your core values, it's as simple as going through those lists of traits and circling common threads. Circling and determining, what do I see as commonalities between these individuals? What common themes are we seeing? And you might see like, oh, I put hardworking for one and I put tough for another. Like, could we maybe put those in one thing? I put integrity and honesty. Oh, maybe those are together. And you might find that there's crossovers in these. And what I want you to see is what 3 to 5 words do I see that are common themes between these 3 individuals? And those 3 to 5 words should give you a really great starting place for who you are at your best as an organization. There's a lot of science I could break down to why your brain picks out those things, but the short version is it's a mirror for you. The things that you look for, the things that you see that you begin to really get excited about in individuals and you celebrate in them and you want more of that, is typically things that you value within yourself. And when I've taught organizations this, I get a lot of pushback like, well, hold on. Like, what about what I embody? What about me as a leader? Hey, it's a mirror to you. If you're seeing something you admire among certain individuals, it's typically a mirror of something value within yourself. If you see something you like about someone else that doesn't matter to you, you probably wouldn't have noticed it. If it's not important to you, you're probably not going to recognize it. And so these 3 to 5 words amongst these lists of individuals are going to give you a clear picture of what you truly value as a leader and what your organization should begin to embody at a higher level. Now, there's a couple things I want you to caution yourself against when you're picking these values. One is it should not be aspirational. This is from Patrick Lencioni. There's 3 value traps he lists out when it comes to picking your values. One is they should not be aspirational. It should not be something that you hope to be. It should be who you already are at your best. Don't sit down and be like, I want to be super creative. Well, are you already creative now? No. Then don't try to be something you're not. Embrace who you already are. So again, the 3 things you want to avoid are it can't be aspirational who you want to be. It can't be accidental where it's just naturally a part of who you are because of your personality as a company. Like engineers, of course, are going to be analytical. Accountings, of course, are going to be detail oriented. And then third is it can't be pay to play. It can't just be an expectation of being a good human, a good worker. So avoid those 3 things. And when you look at your lists of your characteristics of those 2 to 3 individuals, I want you to pick 3 to 5 words that embody who those people are. And those 3 to 5 words are who you are at your best as an organization. Now, the magic happens when you begin to wordsmith it a little bit and you say, instead of integrity, I want to say XYZ. Instead of passion, I want to say I bring my best. Or, instead of hardworking, I've got a company that I work with that says GSD, it's get ish done. And they say, this is the way that we say it. This is how we show up. And this is the thing that really embodies us. So these core values should be true to you. And you know they're good whenever you read it out loud to yourself or you read it to your team and they're like, yeah. Like you can immediately sense it. The corporations that I get to go and walk through this exercise, usually when we're whiteboarding it out and we circle one of them and I say, what do you guys think about get ish done? They're like, yeah, that's our thing. Like they get fired up and they really can feel it within themselves whenever you hit one of these values. And so make sure you stress test these a little bit and say, does this really fit who we are at our best? Do we get excited about this? Do we rally behind it? Because these values are going to truly drive who you are as an organization. It will drive the culture that you create. So that's the first step. If you want to create a winning culture, it starts with you determining what do we value? Who are we when we are at our best? Once you've determined those 3 to 5 words or 3 to 5 phrases of the values that we hold, now to create the culture that you want, your job as a leader is to drive behaviors that align with those values. Because again, culture is values plus behaviors. That determines the culture that you have. And so your job as a leader is to drive those values that you said were important. What do I mean by drive? You have tons of tools at your disposal to be able to incentivize or encourage people to live a certain set of behaviors. Here's some examples. You can hire based off of those values. You can fire based off of those values. You can celebrate those values. You can incentivize or reward based off of those values. You can punish off of those values. You can recognize based off of those values. You can give gifts and bonuses. There's so many things that you can do in order to encourage those behaviors that align with those values. So your job now as a leader is to look at those values and look at your organization and say, how can I encourage people to behave in this way? What ways can I do that? Some ways that have been really great for us is anytime we do company town halls, and we've got all the organization together, we will celebrate people based off of those specific values. And we'll have people get celebrated for each one. One of the companies that I run, the 3 values are passion, integrity, and impact. And so we give 3 awards at our company town halls. Who is the passion player of the month? Who is the integrity player of the month? Who is the impact player of the month? And we will celebrate someone based off of the way they showed up for that month. Great ways to encourage those behaviors. The other ways is we actually will hire and fire by those. We run every single employee through an evaluation that says, do they fit these values? Do they act in alignment with these values? And so let's use those examples again. Passion, integrity, and impact. We will actually run each employee, whether it's a new employee, whether it's a current employee, whether it's someone that's on the chopping block because they haven't performed well, we will run them through an assessment that asks, do they live up to these behaviors? And we have a certain bar or a certain standard that we hold or we require people to live up to when it comes to those behaviors, where they have to, at least 2 of those 3, embody them all the time. And the third one, it can be most or some of the time. If you want to learn more about that exercise, I broke down a full training on exactly how to determine if people in the right seats and if they're the right people for your organization. So it expands that test a little further. There's another video that I recorded that's linked down in the show notes that talked about a full strategy to create more profit in your business. But one of the first sections breaks down that test and how to determine if they're the right people in the right seats. So check that out in the show notes. But what we do is we incentivize, we hire, we train, we encourage, we reward, we do everything we can in order to push people to behave in that certain way. And so this is your blueprint. If you're a leader of an organization or of a team or of a family and you want to create a more winning culture, first off, you determine what are our values? And then second is you do everything you can as a leader to drive those behaviors in alignment with those values. How can I get people to live up to the value of passion, to live up to the value of integrity, to live up to the value of impact? How do I drive those behaviors? And if you will begin to do that, you will begin to totally shift the culture of the organization because they're beginning to behave in alignment with certain values. Now, here's one caution I will give you. There's a dangerous place that you can find yourself in when you find a very high-performing team member that doesn't embody those values. And I want to just go ahead and get ahead of this and tell you, because I see this with so many organizations that we coach, that we walk through this process. We determine the values that are important. We start incentivizing, we start driving them, we start hiring by them, we start firing them by them. And inevitably, we find a super high-performing team member. Often it's a salesperson that does not embody the values. They're an incredible earner. They bring a ton of money into the business, but yet they don't live up to the values and actually cause a lot of chaos within the organization. And the owner, when we walk through this process and we determine this person is not a value fit, they're not the right person for our organization, they immediately like, hey, I understand, but we can't lose this person. Like a majority of our revenue comes from them. And my response to them is what I want to encourage you with too. And I want to warn you, my encouragement to them is, hey, I understand. I get it. They bring a lot of value to organization, but what you don't understand is they are single-handedly killing the culture of the rest of the team. Not only because of the way they're acting, but because of how you're responding to that behavior. Because you're not doing anything about it, because you're allowing that person to stay around, you are now telling your team, your organization, that their results, their performance is more important than the values that you have set. And it tells them that they don't have to embody the values themselves. It tells them that you actually don't value them as much as you say you value them. And so you have a choice to make as a leader. Once you've determined those values, and you said, I'm going to now drive those behaviors, when inevitably someone comes up that doesn't live to those, you have a choice to make. Do I want to create the culture I said I wanted, or do I want to reward behaviors that I don't like but that lead to good results? You got a choice. There's no right or wrong. You just are going to teach a different culture than you want. If you want a different culture, if you want a winning culture, it starts with you being willing to sacrifice someone that performs at a high level in order to create that culture. But here's what I found. Every single time without fail, that owners and leaders have chosen to remove that bad apple, regardless of how well they performed, inevitably the whole team rose to better performance and it outweighed the performance that they had lost. I'm gonna say that again. Every single time I've coached an organization through this process and they've gotten rid of a bad apple that did not fit the values, even though they had massive performance that person brought in, when that person was removed, every single other person up-leveled their game because the culture changed and it actually began to outweigh the performance that individual had. Let's use the sales example. And I saw this recently with the company. They had one salesperson that brought in like 40% of their revenue, and there's 8 other guys that made up the other 60%. And the owner's concern was, if we get rid of this person, we're missing out on most of our revenue. This is a big deal. But what happened was, when they removed this high performer salesperson, every single one of the other 8 guys significantly increased their output, and it made up for the loss that they had let go with that salesperson. In fact, they actually outproduced those numbers. It was 60 days later, they were outproducing what they were doing before because the culture changed. Everyone was excited. Everyone's fired up. Everyone's bought into the mission because they had said, no more letting someone get by, not living our values and our culture just because they perform well. So this owner chose to prioritize culture over performance, and actually ended up driving the performance that he wanted. So if you're a leader that wants to create a winning culture, determine your values, who you are, begin to drive those values through behaviors, incentivize them, hire by them, fire by them, and be willing to sacrifice performance for this culture, because your culture will determine who you become as an organization. Your culture will determine the growth that you can have. I've actually heard it said that culture eats strategy for breakfast. Who you are as an organization will trump everything else. No matter what strategy, what people you have, the culture that you create will shape everything else around them. So if you're a business owner that's watching this and you found this very valuable, there's 2 call to actions I want to give you, 2 encouragements. Number 1 is check out the rest of the content that I've been producing on how to create winning teams and winning organizations. And number 2, if you really want to accelerate this process, we can help you implement this tool and hundreds of others inside of your organization. What we do as a company is we'll actually come in and I will implement an operating system in your business with this tool, with hundreds of other tools that will allow your company to become the organization you want it to be, to grow and scale to the levels that you want to see. And it requires you putting a system on top of your business so that you can execute properly. So if you want help with that, click the link below. You can learn how our business consulting works. If you want to just get more free value, you can click some of the links below of the other video trainings that we've done. And thank you so much for tuning in. I'll catch you in the next episode. Bye.